Fantastic. Awesome. Well, welcome everyone. I am very, very excited to be with you all. It has been an amazing, incredible journey to get to this point, and so I'm excited to be pass the baton as we move forward with our solidarity grants. So we are the Community Endowment Fund program. I'm the Community Endowment Fund program manager. So new to this role, this just starting this year, but been with the foundation for a couple of years. I am excited to be with you all. I'm very thankful for you all for coming and attending. When you have a party, you kind of wonder like who all is going to be there, right? And so thankful to see so many familiar faces of wonderful people that are here. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. We are going to be talking about our Reimagine and Renewal grants inside of this information session. We have it scheduled until 1. We'll see if we make it too that long, probably not. Just kind of thinking through, I've watched the presentation. It should take me about 30 minutes to talk through all the parts that I wanted to mention. And then we'll have another part for some questions after that. So you can go to the next slide.
Yeah, and quickly, I'm just letting you know we are recording this. If anyone loses power or loses internet, we'll be sure to follow up with an email with this full recording, hoping we get that far. I am going to be off screen, but I'm here keeping an eye on the chat. So if you have questions, plug them in there.
Awesome. Thank you, Megan. And I also mentioned that I have actually already lost power in my house. So I am on my hotspot on my phone in case I'm a little bit kind of glitchy throughout the presentation today. So thank you for your patience as we hopefully, I don't know, it feels rare to get tornadoes inside of Virginia, but hopefully they miss us and all of those things. Um, Welcome again. Through this presentation, we're going to walk through a couple of things, a short bit about CACF, so the Starkville Area Community Foundation, talking through who we are, what we do, what our pillars are. Then we're going to go into our Solidarity Program overview, talking about some of the work that we have in front of us, thinking about the eligibility in order to apply for the Solidarity Program. And then more specifically, the 2 programs that are going to be launching here in April. On April 1st will be Reimagine and Renewal. So I will talk to you all about the eligibility, the process, the timeline, evaluation, some of the questions you're going to be asked inside of the program, as well as the Q&A at the very end. So, Charlottesville Area Community Foundation, we are a community-centered, equity-forward institution. Our mission is to improve the quality of life for those negatively impacted by inequitable systems across our region so that we can be a region where everyone can belong, participate, contribute, and thrive. Since 1967, community members have partnered with us to pool resources and invested collectively in the foundation in order to make a deeper and longer lasting positive impact. Today, we help to manage nearly 400 charitable funds, gifts, grants, scholarships, and organizational endowments, as well as reserve funds on behalf of our community and our donor partners. So we kind of mass the groups together to help make the biggest impact inside of our community. These are our strategic pillars. We have strategic pillars of strong enterprise. So really having the capacity, skills, knowledge, and infrastructure and culture to deliver on our goals. Influential leadership as a community leader through strategic use of our institutional voice and on the issues of importance inside of our region. Deep and authentic relationships to ensure a more diverse and representative team, board, volunteer composition across the organization, and intentional and meaningful relationship building across our entire service area, which includes the city of Charlottesville and the counties of Albemarle, Buckingham, Fluvanna, Greene, Louisa, Nelson, and Orange. As far as catalytic resources, we have an array of effective tools to deploy catalytic resources into the region in all forms of capital, including relationship capital, as well as some of our capacity building opportunities that I'm in charge of as well. So the Solidarity Program. This was actually a really incredible opportunity as I was learning about the program. One of the things that stuck out to me as I spoke with Ebony was that the fuller name of the Solidarity Program is actually Solidarity Over Charity. So it is the idea being that we are going beyond just kind of the traditional gift giving or donations that are made from either community endowment, community foundation or even direct donors. We are trying to not just give a grant, have you all do a program, and then report on us how many people attended the program. We really want to have an opportunity to be in solidarity with you. This is a more of a way of being in true community with you all in a space that feels like you can come to us when things are going well, when things are not going well, when you are having an issue in completing some of the things that you had thought that you were able to do at the beginning of the grant program. This is really meant to be an opportunity for us to work collectively because we are a part of this community as well. Our kids go to school here, our families are grown here, we volunteer here, we are on boards, we are in this with you all, we care about the same things that you all are working on. And so this idea of solidarity over charity is kind of the basis and the foundation of what we want to do with a solidarity program. As far as eligibility goes, this is for all of our programs from Reimagine, Renewal to Reshaping Futures. In order to be eligible, you need to be either a 501c3 school, governmental, or religious entity, or a group fiscally sponsored by a mission-aligned 501c3 nonprofit. We have sponsorship paperwork that is pretty that's outlined all of those details around what mission alignment looks like. You need to have a local presence and impact inside of the areas that I mentioned, Charlottesville, Albemarle, and the six surrounding counties. This you also must not have a currently open solidarity grant. So if you have a Reshaping Futures grant that you received last year and you're in a multi-year process, you would not qualify in order to receive a second grant on top of what you already have received. And I'll go into more detail about that when it comes to the Reimagine and Renewal grants this year. This is also around power building and sharing among the most among those that are most proximate and impacted. So thinking about the people that are closest to these issues, right? If you are serving students that are in need, making sure that those students have a voice in how this action is being played out, how the funding is being distributed, where it is going that impacts them the most. And we are looking for transformative or proactive approaches to racial equity and movement building. We have a slide that kind of shows our movement building continuum, and it'll get more detail into that. But those are kind of the preferences we're looking for as a proactive and transformative approaches. And then here's a quote that I will read you all about movement building that's a little bit more specific. Movement building is the effort of social change agents to engage power holders in the broader society in addressing a systemic problem or injustice while promoting an alternative vision or solution. So we are looking at not just those that are working inside of the downstream. If you imagine the effects of kind of fixing the fish that are in a polluted pond or in a polluted river, you may see the fish that are needed, right? You may see the fish that need the immediate support, responding to the current and urgent needs of those fish. And we're also looking now actually at moving people upstream, kind of figuring out what is polluting the water, what is the groundwater that is affecting the water that's coming into this space that makes the fish die downstream. And so with seeking to remove and prevent injustice within the systems, and part of the upstream is also creating new streams, right? Creating an opportunity that is imaginative and demonstrates alternatives for people and the justices that they face. So as I mentioned, this is our movement building continuum. So this was developed by our very own Keisha, who put this together as a way to kind of help people and nonprofits think through where exactly am I along this continuum. The responsive is kind of the responding to immediate and current needs downstream. Proactive being spaces in which you can attempt to remove the current or future barriers and inequities upstream within the system. So you're imagining kind of the same stream and working within the systems that are already created and removing some of those barriers that are inside of the systems that we have right now. And then you have transformative, which really seeks to not just repair and heal past injustice, but also imagining and demonstrating new and alternative streams, right? New and alternative systems that create spaces of things that maybe we haven't imagined before. Maybe instead of doing tutoring for the vulnerable students, you're actually working on creating an affordable, high quality neighborhood preschool, right? Maybe instead of doing some work where you are helping to manage shelter for an unhoused residents, you're creating and converting for-profit rentals into permanently affordable housing through a community land trust, right? These are like it's a really broad continuum, but thinking about, okay, how do we move from the responsive work that is being done currently into a way that is both proactive and eventually transformative. We understand pretty clearly after years and years of doing this that we can't program our way out of this. We can't program our way out of injustice. And so the focus of this granting program and this grant program entirely is really to make sure that we are working to get people beyond just the direct day-to-day programming, but getting them into a proactive and transformative space, wanting them to think upstream, to think about a transformative system. Yes, we have and likely will always need the responsive things that are focused here, but we also actually are really focused on making sure that we're pushing ourselves to go beyond just the programmatic grant making and going into the proactive and transformative grant making. So our Reimagine Renewal grants, this is how we're going to hopefully do this with some of our grant programming. And you can go to the next slide. I will start off with kind of explaining a little bit of what happened last year. So we had Reimagine Renewal Grant Awards in 2025. With our Reimagine, we had 27 applicants. The number of grantees were 10. And then the grant amount totaled $205,000. With our renewal grants, we had 13 applicants with 5 grantees and totaled around $70,000 in our grant amount. So in total, we gave out grants for around $275,000 for 15 grantees. This is not to say that this is exactly how it's going to be. We'll have this many number of applicants, this number of grantees, but this is just to kind of give you a ballpark as to see what kind of we're able to do, right? We don't have unlimited resources that are here at the Community Foundation, but we are trying to do the absolute best with what we have and support the incredible work that's being done inside of our community. So to give you all a bit of a timeline as to what you all can imagine, for both our Reimagine and Renewal grants, we have our application is open on April 1st of 2026. It will close on May 1st of 2026. We then will have June is our time for both the due diligence and evaluation of the applications that we received with our community advisory committee, which is a separate body of community members that review all the applicants and make recommendations to our board. Our board then is able to process and decide the final decisions, and they will have their board meeting and we will have the grant decisions sent out to you all based off of the community advisory committee's recommendations and the board's approval. We sent out those grant decisions in July of 2026. And then from that point, you will have 6 months to kind of work through some of the processes. We have January 2027 as an opportunity for us to be able to check in with you all as a 6 month check in. We understand that some of these opportunities may be different, right? You may have a renewal grant that is happening on an event. It's happening in one day. We will likely check in with you beforehand to kind of see, okay, is there any supports that you need? How can we be a better partner? What are ways in which we can use some of our resources beyond just this check in order to make this thing happen? But the general 6 month check-in for most grantees that are on that year-long cycle is going to be January of 2027, and then July, so 1 year later, will be our grant closeout meeting. As you can see with Reshaping Futures, that will start with letters of intent in January of 2027. So if you apply for a Reimagine or Renewal grant in 2026, you would not be eligible to apply for a Reshaping Futures grant in 2027. I'll go over a bit of the differences between those in a little bit, but this is just a kind of highlight for you all. You all can make the decision today as to whether or not you would like to apply for a Reimagine or Renewal grant inside of 2026, knowing that you would be ineligible to apply for a Reshaping Futures grant in 2027, just because of the timing of it all. We wouldn't have the grant closeout meeting until basically after the decisions were made for the Reshaping Futures grant for next year. And so just something for you all to be thinking about as you are deciding on whether or not you like to apply. You can go to the next slide. Oh, I lost my plates. There we go. Um, So yes, so um, with the Reimagine and Renewal grants, for Reimagine, we have a maximum of $50,000 inside of our funding. This is focused on idea development, research, planning, visioning, pausing, resetting, restructuring, or closing. So you're thinking about some of those short-term professional support services, such as nonprofit legal accounting, and services that really help you to not just settle within what your what the institutional and the structural needs of your organization are, but really enhancing your movement building capacity, right? This is maybe staff support or volunteer training. This is really helping people to think through, okay, what do we need to do in order to move up this movement building continuum, to move potentially from some of our responsive work into proactive work? How do we move from some of our proactive work into transformative work? The reimagining space is really an opportunity for us to be able to do some thinking about like what that looks like for the idea development, the research, and helping to think through how do we really make sure that we have board training and development and spaces that they would really need to uh, bolster your own institutional prowess in order to be able to move yourself into the more proactive and transformative spaces. For renewal, this is oftentimes many times the first step in order to get to a space where you have a well-functioning board that's ready to think about transformative practices. You may also need rest and collective healing work, an opportunity to do coalition building to figure out, am I the best person to be doing this work? Is my organization the best person or best organization to do this work? Or am I able to partner with other organizations that are also doing similar work in order to make it into the transformative space, right? Am I personally positioned to that? Let's think about what that looks like, and how I can really set myself up for that. And that sometimes takes some of the rest and some of the time that we really don't normally give ourselves to really go slow to go fast. So if you have a sabbatical request, we do have you all submit your organizational sabbatical policy, but really wanting to think about, okay, how do we really rest before we start to go forward? Both of those, again, are on from April 1st to May 1st for applications and a decision in July. For any of you all that are on this call that had received a Reimagine Renewal grant in 2025, and you're thinking about applying for Reimagine Renewal in 2026, again, there should only be about 15 of you. You need to make sure that have both spent all of the funding that you have received from 2025, as well as had a closeout meeting with me. So if those things have not happened, you will not be eligible to apply for 2026. If you are still within your process and are not going to be able to finish finish your grant from 2025. Again, we want to make sure that everyone has like completed their grants processes from the previous year or any other years before applying for the next process. So those are, again, there's 15 organizations that are probably have that question. You and I should have a conversation, is just kind of the basis of that, and making sure that you all know, okay, is this the right time to apply for a Reimagine or Renewal grant? Or am I actually setting myself up for the Reshaping Futures grant, which has multi-year funding with a $500,000 max? So this is kind of the part that we go through the application, the evaluation, thinking about the things that we're looking for inside of an applicant. So we have the theory of change, your experience in movement building, capacity in order to achieve that grant, power building and sharing, and care for resources. These are the things that we're looking for. I'll have a timeline in the end to remind you all, but this is kind of the application itself, and we're going to walk through in detail each of these processes. For the theory of change, with the Reimagine grants, it is to encourage nonconformity, creativity, and experimentation by supporting the idea research and development, planning, visioning, pausing, resetting, restructuring, or even closing when necessary. Applicants may also apply for funding for support services and training that enhance your movement building capacity. As I'd mentioned before, kind of thinking through, okay, how am I setting up my board to be thinking about transformative work? How am I restructuring myself in a space that really allows me to be moving to the proactive and transformative space? You will be asked about what community problem or racial inequity are you addressing? What measurable outcomes do you hope to achieve? Who is leading these efforts, right? Are the people that are leading the efforts most impacted and guiding your efforts? And really, the focus and preference is going to be on a well-defined outcomes that have a deep understanding of the inequity that is needed to be addressed. This theory of change is really around what do you see as the issue, and then how is your prescription like effective, right? How is what is your prescription, and how will you know it's effective? So we see an issue of people experiencing homelessness. What is your prescription to work through that in both a proactive and transformative way? And then how will you know that you actually were effective in making that happen? Next, the theory of change for the renewal grant. So again, this grant is hoping to foster collaboration, joy, healing, most specifically rest, and providing the reparative support, whether it be physical, spiritual, or interpersonal. Requests for sabbaticals, as well as collective healing work. We talk about joyful resistance. This is really the space in which people can not only come together in jubilee and excitement and working together in that way, but also figuring out, okay, what are we moving towards, right? What are some of the social issues that are impacting our community? Can we get some people that represent us to speak to this group of people that is coming together? What are the ways that we can not just come together in joy, knowing that that joyful resistance is really an impactful, but also how do we make sure that that joyful resistance is leading towards action? What are the spaces in which we really find opportunities to make our communities better, so that way we can continue to be joyful in our resistance. Thinking about coalition building or even mediation and conflict resolution, knowing that there are so many nonprofits inside of our space, what are the coalitions that can be built in order to make some of that work move towards a proactive and transformative space? Questions you will be asked are, what do you hope to do with this grant? What is your plan for reaching these goals, including your timeline, necessary resources, anticipated activities and outcomes? And how might this grant enhance your movement building capacity? Again, thinking about the ways you're moving up that spectrum. Our preference is for well-defined outcomes as well as support and capacity to achieve those outcomes. Knowing that taking a sabbatical is a lot of work. It takes a lot of prep work. It takes a lot of community space in which you are supported by your team around you. Do you have the capacity for that? Is there space for you to do that? Do you have a plan for what you're going to do during your sabbatical? We really want them to happen, but we want to make sure that also that your capacity is available for that. So really be thinking about, okay, if I want to do a sabbatical, how is my organization set up to support me within that? Experience, we are committed to supporting racial equity movement building, right? These are efforts that go beyond providing services and individual relief, but instead seek to reimagine and alter unjust systems, as well as achieve long-term community level change. Again, going from individual to community level. And so thinking to yourself and being honest and saying, where do I fit along this movement building continuum? Not everyone is going to fit in the proactive and transformative space, because honestly, that's just not how grant making is normally done. It's normally done in the kind of responsive space. It's normally done in a way that is, how do we kind of fix the fish? And so I want you all to be thinking about, okay, where do we fit along this? And then talk about our track record, right? Have we always been there? Are there places in which we've brought on board members that are looking to move us towards a proactive space? How do we make sure that we are not just doing individual work, but also working on the community level space and making sure that there are opportunities for advocacy and reaching beyond just the people that we're working with individually? So talking to us about your group's history and track record of movement building. Obviously, again, the idea being that transformative alternatives are the preference for this, but knowing that we want to see people that are moving through that continuum and moving towards that space. As far as capacity, we understand that it takes a village, right? No one is able to do any of this work alone. We often feel like we are asked to do this work alone. Keisha calls this the chief everything officer, right? You were asked to be the person that is fundraising and executiving, right? That's a word, but like visioning, right, for the organization, as well as doing the programming and keeping the books and cleaning the toilets. And so, what is your capacity to not just receive this grant, but to spend and close out the grant award? We're trying to ensure that the awarded organization is well positioned to achieve the proposed goals and outcomes. And those goals and outcomes, we want you to know, are set by you. So you are the ones that are setting the goals and outcomes and being able to say, we believe through our theory of change that if we do this, then this will happen. And we will know because of these outcomes. We will have these experiences that we're expecting. So we're in your capacity space. We're going to be asking you who are the key team members, partners, consultants, contractors, that are involved in this work. If you're looking to say, we really need a strategic plan inside of our organization in order to do movement building, how do we make sure that we have a good strategic partner that is going to help us to do that, right? How much is that service going to cost us? How do we come to them with a space to be able to say, we're looking to do this opportunity? So describing their roles and important skills, knowledge, and experience that they have, as well as community relationships they bring, right? We know that there are so many pieces of wealth of knowledge that don't just include the consultants that are offering their time and space and energy to help you to strategically think, but also the people that are on the ground, the people that are most impacted by this. How do we provide stipends for those organizations and those people that are affected by these issues in order to make sure that their time is valued just as we would the consultants? So our preference here, especially with capacity, is for jointly submitted proposals for organizations with representation, leadership, knowledge, and or relationships to be effective. Wanting to really emphasize that this is a group effort. This is an opportunity to come together, an opportunity to be in solidarity with each other, and really find ways that we can be representative of the groups that we're trying to serve. Next, for power building and sharing, we believe the most effective drivers of racial equity are this and social movements that are led by those most affected by the injustice. People that are experiencing homelessness, helping to lead the work that's being done to create housing. We are trying to ensure the most impacted communities are informing, co-creating the applicant's work. Decision-making power rests with individuals and groups that are a part of and or accountable to these communities. So making sure that we have our group's leadership and decision makers reflecting the communities that are most impacted by this racial inequity. How are power building and leadership within these communities? Like what are we doing to really make sure that it is not just a tokenization or a consultation of these groups, but really that they are the decision makers. They are the ones that are leading this change. They are the ones saying, here's what we need in order to make our lives better, in order to make our circumstances different. How are you all as an organization um, powering forward in order to make sure that people understand that this is a part of their community, right? And we're making sure that we're sharing power with those people that are most affected by this work. So we really want you all to have a clear and equitable process for those leading the work in order to access resources appropriately and make decisions about how the resources are used. So making sure that there's community with and not just community to. I'm going to pause there for a second.
Thanks, Daniel. Hi, everyone. This is Ebony.
Mhm.
I hope you're doing well today. I just wanted to jump in real quick to add a couple of notes to what Daniel just shared around capacity. Um, in addition to sort of that village mentality and collaborative spirit, I just want to ensure that while we appreciate and certainly encourage collaborative applications, folks who are submitting individually are not going to be docked in any way, shape, or form. And this particular criteria is really focused on ensuring that you guys have the right people around the table in order to carry out the work that you guys are describing. So some of this may be looking at things like ensuring that you guys have adequate board oversight and expertise on your boards. It may mean connecting you with the appropriate consulting partners. It's ensuring that key team members are staying in the work. So sometimes we've had situations where after receiving the grant, an executive director has left the organization. And so we just want to name that we're evaluating all levels of capacity, but also providing capacity building support along the way. So, I just want to name that while we've had a lot of really successful joint applications, I don't necessarily want folks to go out and just try to find someone to grab a partner
Mhm.
in this. We recognize that individual organizations are doing extraordinary work, and so that's certainly encouraged, but it's not a requirement of this grant.
Yeah, thank you, Ebony. Very similar to kind of the preference being for transformative work. It's not saying that we will only fund transformative working organizations, but thinking about how are you all moving towards kind of that collaborative mindset. But I really do think that's a good point to emphasize that this capacity is one of the biggest parts of it, right? If you all we can have all the great ideas that we want in the world, but we don't have the capacity to actually achieve them, then I think that that really is an important part for us to be thinking about. Okay, am I able to really achieve these goals? And how do I really come to the capacity or even ask for help and saying, I would like to do this, but I need to know where can I find, some of those resources with Catch a Fire, some of those resources with, whatever it may be that you need, some of the consulting that's really done in this kind of movement building space. So we are here to help you build that capacity, as well as ensuring that like you all are able to achieve the goals that you're looking for as well. Um, as far as power building and sharing, the last part that I'll come to here is just that we are looking again for people that are doing community with others and doing community with the people that are most directly impacted by these issues and not just community to them. And care for resources. This is a financial interaction between the both of us. We are trying to make sure that you all are receiving the financial support that you need. And so we want to ensure that by requesting financial documentation that is relevant to the activities and the outcomes outlined in the proposal. So you will be asked for a project budget. You'll be asked for your most recently complete fiscal year budget to actuals. So this is not necessarily, well, maybe not necessarily, this is not just your budget from 2025 and kind of the estimates that you had going into it. But this is your profit and loss statement. This is how much money did you receive and how much money did you spend? Where did you receive the money? Where did the money go? So those things are super helpful and is often the greatest indicator of both your financial stewardship as well as what adding financial resources to this organization or to this space will actually do to propel you all forward. So that's a really important piece. Sometimes people may submit just their budget from last year. We really want you all to be able to submit your budget to actuals of your last completed fiscal year. So knowing that sometimes people are July to July, sometimes people are January to December, but having the completed financials of how much money you received and how much money went out is going to be really important for us to make our decision. As well as your current fiscal year budget. Sometimes people they may be in the middle of a budget year and be able to provide some of how much they've spent so far, but really understanding, okay, where do you all see your projected funding and projected expenses, as well as an opportunity to think through your budget narrative, right? So some of you all may be new organizations that are saying, this is actually my first time doing this. Help to explain to us like where you're coming from, right? There's been a lot of cuts in federal funding that a lot of organizations have experienced either directly or through federal programs that got cut to state programs that then cut the local programs. And so Virginia Endowment for the Arts being one of them, right? How do we make sure that we have an understanding of like what you all expected or what you all thought, and how that's different than maybe what we see. Because numbers tell part of the story, but I think the narrative really helps us to understand, okay, this is where you all are, and how you all like to project your finances in the future, or even some things that happen that may not be prevalent in just the numbers. So the preference here is for a clear alignment between the resources, as which is like financial material, people, time, and the activities and outlines and activities and outcomes outlined in the proposal. We really want you to be honest, right? Do an honest assessment of the true cost of the proposed work. Yes, we have maximums that are $50,000 and that are $25,000. But if it doesn't take $50,000 to do that, then be honest with that, right? Be able to share, okay, we actually think that it will take this much money in order to achieve these goals. We want you all, you will see a new part of it. If anyone's applied to BAMA, we started to shift to this practice as well of having both a lower limit request and an upper limit request. The lower limit being kind of a space where you all are able to explain, we need this much money or this cannot happen. We want you to really think through, okay, what is exactly that it is that we need? And then the upper limit being knowing that we have financial limitations, but the upper limit being, okay, if we're able to not just have the 10 program or the 10 students that we're working with or a coalition of group of people that is 10, maybe we want to have 15. That would maybe give us a better experience and having more opportunities, then this is what it will cost for 15 of those people to be a part of this. But being really clear and an honest assessment of the true cost of your proposed work, not just kind of, okay, we're going to meet this specific deadline or this specific number because it's a maximum. Awesome. And so here again is the timeline. April 1st to May 1st being a grant application opening. And then early June is when we will have our due diligence as well as our community advisory committee doing their evaluation. Our funding decision will be made internally around late June. So with our community advisory committee making their recommendations, those then going to be approved by the board, and then we're hoping to have checks distributed in early July. Here we are, two questions. I will open the floor up. Megan has been monitoring the chat to see if anyone has any questions there. But yes, we will take your questions and I will answer them to the best of my ability. If I don't know, I will say I don't know, and then I will get back to you.
Thanks, Daniel. Could you speak to whether or not you're available for meetings prior to submitting applications, pre-meetings, or if folks have questions in advance? How can they be in touch with you?
Yes, absolutely. At the end of this slide, you'll see my email. I think you all may have it already. If not, we'll send it out in the post evaluation of this webinar. But yes, I actually prefer an opportunity to talk to you and think through what you're looking for and how or whether or not it fits within this program. It is a very specific program that is really looking beyond the programming that we normally or that granting is normally done through the charity mindset. And so I'd love the opportunity to talk to you.
There's a question in the chat about can you reiterate eligibility around people who received solidarity grants in 2025?
Yes. So if you received a solidarity grant in 2025 and you would like to apply, this is a solidarity as in a Reimagine or Renewal grant in 2025, and you would like to apply in this year in 2026, then you and I would need to meet and you would need to have spent all the funding that you had received prior inside of the 2025 grant. And we need to have a closeout meeting that says, okay, here's my final list of profit and loss. Here's all the money that I received. Here's where all the money was spent. And then we'll have an opportunity to think through what what makes sense for you to apply either for Reimagine Renewal this year or for Reshaping Futures next year.
Thank you. I know oh, go ahead.
Thanks. I just wanted to jump in real quick on this. So I just want to clarify for folks that you will only be able to apply for another grant if your previous grant has closed, in that, just as Daniel said, you've spent the funds and you've had your final visit. But that is not what is going to make you competitive for a grant next year. That's simply what makes you eligible. And so in that site visit, we're not only looking for completion, we're looking to evaluate the success of the grant as well. And so while you may be eligible to receive funding in a subsequent year, it really also depends on what happened the previous year, not just that it happened. So I just want to clarify that
Mhm.
we're moving to this methodology so that we can evaluate grant proposals, not simply have them be closed out. And so I also just want to name that these grants are moving to an every other year cycle to be able to adequately conduct that evaluation. So Reimagine and Renewal will run in 2026, Reshaping Futures in 2027, and then we'll continue to alternate from then forward. So it's helpful to plan your sort of application strategy accordingly.
Mhm.
There's a question in the Q&A around defining joyful resistance.
Yeah, absolutely. With that, again, if you have specific questions about your program that you want to think through, I'd welcome a meeting to talk through that specifically. But the joyful resistance is really, again, thinking through not just the gathering of the people, but kind of a gathering with a purpose. Where is this movement going towards, right? Are we to gather people in order to hold our politically elected officials accountable? Are we trying to gather people in order to think through, okay, what does an opportunity to advocate and learn about some issues that are really necessary and affecting our community? It is an opportunity really to share space with each other, to enjoy each other's company, but also to make sure that we are really using the opportunity and the space and the time that we have spent together to push forward some issues of advocacy that we are really passionate about. And so I think that that is really helpful to think about, like, how do we not just joyfully gather, but also plan together and work together. But I'll have actually Ebony chime in just to kind of give a little bit of a fuller explanation of joyful resistance.
Sure. Thanks, Daniel. So as you guys, if you've been with us along this journey, you've had some time to take a look at the movement building continuum, and you also recognize that this has been an evolution for the foundation as well. And so one of the things that we have noticed, so when we first instituted the Solidarity Program and talked about racial equity movement building and transformative work over responsive work, that represented a huge shift in thinking around grant making and philanthropy in the community. So, historically speaking, an overwhelming majority of funding from the Community Foundation has gone to support direct service work, which is critically important. We're talking about mentoring youth or distributing meals to people in need or providing vital mental health services and things like that. What we found through our relationship with you all is that when we've made consistent investments in these areas, your own work has often been curtailed by a lack of support at a much higher and broader level that requires either community organizing, legislative advocacy, policy change, and major systems oriented shifts in order for even your direct service work to be successful. However, historically speaking, that type of work would often go unfunded in favor of short term direct service solutions. So, solidarity is both an evolution in terms of recognizing and understanding that we need to be working in tandem with and not for, that decision making needs to be in the hands of community members. So we reorganize our CAC. But it also means that we need to be funding more transformative work that requires mobilization, organizing, and advocacy in ways that we hadn't done before. What that also means is that folks really struggle to see themselves immediately on that continuum. And folks that were doing direct service work or often building community through gatherings were not able to connect the dots between their work and their transformative work. And yet we know that historically speaking, movements have always been supported through the experience of joyful resistance, that breaking bread and fellowship, coming together to celebrate in supporting cultural renewal and awareness are critical aspects of movement building. And so joyful resistance is our opportunity to honor that tradition as part of the movement building continuum, and while not sacrificing our desire to really be focused on those transformative efforts. And so, there's a long, you think about distributing food with the Black Panthers. You think about rent parties from way back in the day. These events, these gatherings were never just about the party. They were always about collectivizing, mobilizing towards a specific goal or action. And so we also want to continue to support things that make this feel like a really vibrant and exciting place to live while also keeping our eyes on the prize. And so that is the balance that we're trying to strike here, in that we're not denying those proposals. However, we will take a really critical lens at which of those we will support, and expect those folks to be able to demonstrate where it's situated on that movement building continuum. So I hope that answers your question, but I'm happy to elaborate further if you guys need it.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Ebony. Is there, let's see.
Yeah, there's a really thoughtful question in the chat. It says, how do we visually or experientially demonstrate our transformative impact to our community advisory committee when data and images fall short? How can we help folks get it when you worry that they don't?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the storytelling aspect of it is so incredibly important, and really being able to think through like the experiences that you all have, if there are opportunities of collective gathering that have led to something that has been transformative inside of your life. And that I think is really impactful. So if you all have stories that you can tell inside of your like the kind of explanation, if you all have I mean, even visually, I'm thinking more around pictures or opportunities to really just kind of share the experience. I think that those are some of the things that really make a difference. And wanting to also be able to think about, okay, what does collecting data that would be impactful look like, right? What is the data that you're looking for? Like, how can we find a way to get to that? And one of the things that we're trying to do this year really is thinking about how can you speak directly, and thinking about like your impact in the dialogue that comes with the experiences that you have. We know that not everything is going to be captured in the data and the changes that have been made, especially when you're thinking about building things that can take years in order to see the actual systems level or community-wide change. But wanting to really find a way that you all can speak directly with your lived experiences about what that looks like. So it's more than just kind of the specifics of like, okay, we helped this many individuals, achieve this thing, but really thinking about like what are the stories and the impacts and the change, and sometimes even those lifelong changes that have happened based off the work that you've done. So hopefully that helps. Looks like Kiki, but then is actually a soul. Not yes, this is soul. Okay.
I'll chime in quickly. This is Megan.
Hmm.
We're attempting to have a very open-ended application in that if you have a video that you can share, you can provide a link to that in lieu of a written application. Any other sort of alternative application method we are open to. So if you are hoping to apply and you get to the application and don't feel that it allows for your style of presentation of information, let us know and we can, change things in the background of our application to allow you to do so. That includes
Hmm.
videos, it means presentations, it means, PDFs or any sort of kind of attachment there.
Yeah, I'll chime in on that as well. We've had folks submit like Canva presentations, and I'll just say I think the committee has really appreciated having alternative forms as well. So they are not considered to be inferior in any way. We really do encourage folks to submit in the way that you would prefer. Um, Kiki and Soul, just to say that the video that you guys just produced does a really excellent job of demonstrating theory of change. So we'd encourage folks, if they haven't seen that, to take a look at that as a really good example. And then, Gwen, to answer your question, our team will absolutely watch a 90-minute documentary and we will share it with our committee. However, there are limits on the video presentations just to equalize how long it would take to read a written report versus watching a video. And so if you want to share that with us, we would absolutely love to see that 90-minute video. But for application purposes and fairness, there are some specific time limits attached to that.
Thank you, Ebony. Was there another question? I was looking at Megan.
I think we're caught up on questions in the chat and in the Q&A. So
Mhm.
we can do a last call. Any other questions you want to throw in here?
Mhm.
If not, oh, yeah, that's a great question, Maureen. Information about what Reshaping Futures grants were funded in this most recent round as they consider this round of Renewal and Reimagine versus Reshaping next year.
Yeah,
Happy
go ahead.
to real quick.
Mhm.
Thank you for the question, Maureen. We are uh, the reshaping futures process from 2025 is not complete yet. And so, for those of you who are interested, that process involves multiple design meetings as well as a more robust grant agreement process. And so, we are unable to announce those grantees until everyone has signed on the dotted line and also given permission to share that information. Um, let's see. Is there a specific, what I can tell you about that particular round and how the committee landed to help maybe support your thinking around that is that the most important thing about reshaping futures is that each of the organizations that were selected can solidly place their activities and mission within that transformative scale on the movement building continuum. And I would point to that as the primary direction. And rather than thinking about the word transformative on an individual basis, really be thinking about transformative, a systems transformation or an alternative vision that disrupts or reimagines the system completely. Rather than, so sometimes we get applications from folks that say, you know, people who went through our program are totally transformed by that experience. And we completely appreciate how important that is. And we're looking for solutions and for projects and for ideas and for dreaming, for reshaping futures that moves beyond the individual transformation to broader transformation. And yes, that's one of the reasons that we're starting so early in 2027 is that we can spend the time that we need to move people through that process more fully. And that was to you, Ms. Cherry.
Mhm.
What up, Daniel?
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you, everyone. Yes. Okay. So this is, I'm looking and seeing. Awesome. Miss Sherry's help. Yes. So here is any question that you all have. I put my contact up there as I will be your direct contact for the Solidarity Grant and any questions you may have, as well as support around fiscal sponsorships or Catch a Fire or other capacity building programs. You all can reach out to me and I'd be more than happy to connect you or even talk through kind of again, is the which one of these grant programs really fit to your current needs, and which one of these would be an opportunity for you to think beyond, right? And be transformative in your thinking. So I'm very happy to meet you all. That's why we went to do this application is going to start in April, but we wanted to have this webinar early so that way you all can be thinking about, okay, do I need to have a meeting? Are there some questions that I have before I submit my application? So the applications won't be due until May 1st. But we really want to offer, again, any type of ideas or questions that you have to be here in community with you all. Again, going back to the solidarity over charity, this is not just a we have all of this kind of secret space behind us that we're trying to hide. And if you knock on the right doors, you'll get it. Like we really want you to be in community and really want us to be together and really thoughtful around how we can connect with each other and be supportive of you. Because it may be that this grant itself, the entire solidarity program, may not be where you are fitting or even where you are looking to get funding for. And then we can help you find other places where that funding is available. So this is, again, an opportunity to be in solidarity with each other, an opportunity to be connected with each other, and to see us as an advocate and an ally in your organization's future. I think that was it, actually. Oh, yes, that's it. Sorry. Sorry. That's it. Thank you, everyone. I will stick around if you all have questions. But yes, but thank you all for this presentation, for being with me as I go through my first solidarity time. I appreciate you all. Again, if I don't know the answer, I will get back to you. But I really appreciate you all being here with me. And please reach out if you have any questions.